like 70 miles an hour. It's quite pleasant because there's absolutely no vibration at all. It's really eerie. And the steering feels like power steering because it's so light. You feel like you're in a dinghy on the ocean, you know? And Toyota Priuses look like cruise ships as you're pulling up to them. Welcome to an episode of Jay Leno's Garage. Today we're featuring one of my cars. This is a car I lust to have for a long time. I've had it between 15 and 20 years, somewhere in that area. I'm not exactly sure. It's a 1966 NSU Wankel Spider. Now, if you've never heard of this car, there's a good reason for it. They didn't build very many of them. This was the very first Wankel engine car. Now, a lot of people think Mazda invented the Wankel engine. They didn't. The Wankel engine was invented by a man named Felix Wankel, who was German, and it was the first new engine of the 20th century. Internal combustion really was invented in the 1800s. So was steam, so were turbines, so was electric. But the rotary motor was the first engine of the 20th century. Wankel was a pretty clever guy. Unfortunately, he was a Nazi. Not like, oh, he just happened to be German. No, he was a Nazi, and it's a shame. It's a shame when the bad people do good things, I suppose, or interesting things. But that aside, he developed this motor. Now, if you're not familiar how a Wankel engine works, let me show you. Okay, here's the case, okay? Now you see these holes? Spark plug goes here. And here is what, for lack of a better word, would be the equivalent of your piston. Can you see those indentations there? Well, as this moves around like this, in kind of an oblong, as it comes up on the piston forces it to go in this circular motion. So it's a little heavy. This thing does turn in here, take my word for it. Anyway, this is what they call a single rotor, and the Mazda has two of these. Now, Wankel developed this good enough that NSU really almost put their whole future on it. They had the RO80, which was a fabulous car, but there were problems with the seals. See, where it seals, when it comes up on the piston, there's a seal here, and this wears very quickly. The Japanese were quite clever. They loved this engine, and they did testing, and they finally, the rumor is that one of the engineers noticed the graphite on a pencil and thought, hey, why don't we try that, graphite seal? And that's what they did, and that helped seal it to make the combustion a little bit more powerful. So this, see, it spins around like that, goes like that, and we had two of these in the Mazda version. Mazda perfected the seals, and they made the rotary engine, well, pretty popular. They used to have a series of commercials. Piston engine goes tung, 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 tung. Mazda engine goes They ran those on TV all the time. The trouble with it was they didn't get really good gas mileage. They got less than internal combustion piston engines got. And they always told you in the handbook, check the oil every second, fill up. And Americans didn't want to do that. Plus, it might use a quarter oil occasionally. To the enthusiast, if you had an RX-7, you didn't care. But to the average person, what, I'll put oil in it again? You know, so it never quite caught on. But this was their premier car, designed by Bertone. The engine, when I go to car shows, I always say to people, where's the engine? We look in the back. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Let's see. You open this and you go. No, the engine's not there. Oh, it must be in the front. Let's look in the front. Okay, let's see. Where's the front? There we go. No, the engine's not in the front either. Well, in actuality, the engine is so small, it fits right back here. You open this. So you have two trunks with the engine literally below, well, hanging below the car, almost axle length. So it actually handled pretty good. And it was incredibly smooth to drive, just very turbine-like. In fact, the tachometer acts up on this one occasionally. But you have to keep your eye on the tach, because if you don't pay attention, you suddenly realize, oh my God, you're turning like 7,500, 8,000 RPM, and that's when the seals really start to go. If you keep this below 6 grand, you notice on the tack, you take a look, you've got a green, yellow, and then the red area. You got to stay out of the red, because it'll just keep revving and revving. You know, it's not like a piston engine. It just it's going in the same circle. So that's what happens. So it's great fun to drive. It's got 4 speeds. And this was not an inexpensive car in 1966. This was probably about $3,600, $3,800, which is more than an MG, which is as much as a Mustang, and only had 54 horsepower. But it's only pushing 1,500 pounds, so it feels kind of light and fun to drive. Just the smoothness of it, you go, you know, people always stop me on the street and go, hey, does that go in the water? Because they confuse it. They think it looks like the Amphicar, which is, and I know it doesn't go in the water, although if I go off a bridge, it might do it. But no, it's not. They think it's a boat car, but it's not. But you know, being German, the top fits really snug. It's got snug rather. You got to remember, roll-up windows. A lot of sports cars in the 60s still didn't have those. Had roll-up windows, excellent heater, excellent defroster. It was supposed to be a nice, fun, sporty commuting car. And it does that pretty well. In fact, it's pretty bulletproof. The last time I had it out, I said, let me drive it a couple of times before we take it out. I'm going along, I'm fine. I'm climbing up Coldwater Canyon, which is a steep hill, and we just stop. I go, is it fuel pump? No, it's a fuel pump. Couldn't figure out what it was. Well, the interesting thing about this, here, I'll show you. It's only got one spark plug. And I think that spark plug had been in this car pretty much since the day I got it. And it's really an unusual plug. You take a look, you see the way that, you see the tip of that? It's just, I couldn't find these. I found one on eBay, got one at 80 bucks for one plug used. I said, well, I'll find something else. I did find an NGK replacement that works pretty good. But this, see, since it's firing in that sort of area, it's not like a regular spark plug where you have the tip goes all the way down. You have to be careful it doesn't hit the, whatever they call the rotor, the piston, whatever you want to call it. So I managed to find, once I put a new plug in, oh, then it's fine again. So it's been pretty bulletproof. It's fun to drive. It's just such, it was so unusual at the time. And when a Mustang was like $3,000 and an MG was $3,400, $3,500 for this, it looks kind of like a toy, you know. That was sort of the problem with it. But it's really rather clever. You can see the engine right here. It's easy enough to work on. It's easy enough to take out. Has some unusual features. One thing which is really kind of fun or kind of weird, depending on where you are, is here's your air intake for the carburetor. People think this is a gas cap. It pulls air from here. The air gets sucked in through here. You see this rubber piece here blends with, mates with that, and it forces air down into the engine. And that's kind of interesting. There's your radiator to fill up there, your gas tank. It's got pretty good weight distribution right here. Oh, I got to release it in the front. But you get the idea. You got 2 trunks. You just don't see any of these left. Most of them got pretty much beat to death. It's kind of fun to drive because it sounds like a motorboat sitting in the water one side, and it goes like that. You know, the twin cylinder is a little smoother, but this one's kind of interesting. But if you want to go for a ride, come on, hop in. I'll show you what it's like. Go put on my Lederhosen, ja. When that engine starts spinning, it's like hitting a turbocharger. It just kind of picks up a little bit of speed. There you go, look at that. Whoa! No! There's just something calming and relaxing about the just buzzing along. Believe me, nobody gets intimidated by this car. People wave at you, you know. As I said, it's only 54 horsepower, but it's also only 1,500 pounds. So, I mean, there are some motorcycles that are 900 to 1,200 pounds. So it's kind of about the same thing, you know, power to weight. Yeah, when I broke down, as I talked about before in the garage, spark plug just wore out. It must have been 25 years old. It gave up its last spark. The rotor was so far from the tip, you know, it just breathed its last breath and then just died. And of course, when you only have one plug, that's it. And finding another one, oh my God! It took us a couple of days, but we did it. We tracked one down. Nowadays, everybody's talking about electrification, but back then they were trying new kinds of internal combustion engines, you know, Stirling cycle and all this other stuff, and the Wankel, and you know, but the Wankel had a pretty bright future for a while. Mercedes-Benz built a fabulous looking Wankel car. I forget the name of it. Had the gull wing doors. That was pretty neat. I think General Motors took a patent out on it. And of course, as we said, Mazda was the only one that was really successful with it. NSU eventually merged with and became part of Audi because the Wankel just put them out of business. That RO80 was a great car. I wanted to get one of those too, but I realized the more I read about it, the more trouble they seemed to be. These, since they were one rotor, were pretty simple, so they weren't as troublesome, I think, as some of the others. Now I got a Suzuki RE5, which is the Wankel motorcycle. I also have a Hercules, which is a German version of the Wankel. I mean, the Wankel looked like it had a real future for a while there, but now, man, it just one day it all just stopped. Part of a car like this is even car guys have no idea what the heck it is. They're like, what is that? You know, Wankel, what? You know, has the Becker Europa radio. Those are pretty expensive. I like the cigarette lighter. Look at that. Well, it's about 90 degrees today, but it doesn't seem to be running warm. My temperature gauge is still on 0, unless the gauge is disconnected or got broken somehow. I'll see if it warms up in a minute. And this is an American version. It's not in kilometers, it's in miles per hour. Speed limit, speedometer goes to 110. It's only got 16,000 miles on it, which means it's, and it looks like it. It looks well maintained. I bought the nicest one I could find. That's kind of what you want to do when you're looking for a rare car. Buy the nicest version you can find. I mean, Hondas look like Peterbilt trucks when you're in this thing. It's amazing how smooth it is when all the rotating parts are moving in the same direction. You know, even when a car is inexpensive, well, not inexpensive, but it's certainly not an expensive car. I mean, German build quality is always excellent. And you know, the roof is tight in the rain, you don't get any water in it, the window's sealed properly. Really very nice. And even though the Wankel is not a perfect engine, this one runs perfectly well. So that's certainly a testament to German build quality. You know, at 65, 70 miles an hour, it's quite pleasant because there's absolutely no vibration at all. It's really eerie. And the steering feels like power steering because it's so light. You feel like you're in a dinghy on the ocean, you know? And Toyota Priuses look like cruise ships as you're pulling up to them. Well, the cat stopped working, and I got no temperature on my temperature gauge, but I don't think it's hot yet here. You even though it's close to 100 degrees now. I think the temperature sensing unit must either stop functioning or the wire fell off. We'll check that later when we get back. Torque is not its strong suit. You really got to get the engine spinning before you start to really move along. But as I say, just the sheer smoothness and turbine-like feel of that, what do they call that, going around the front. It's just fun to have so many different types of propulsion, you know. Internal combustion, gas, steam, electric, and then Wankel. As I said, the first totally new engine of the 20th century. Oh, now the tank's working again. Okay. Did it fix itself? I don't know. Well, I hope you like these odd cars as much as I do. You know, it's not that they were particularly fast, or it was interesting. Just people trying something different, you know? And that's what I like. Just these little anomalies in the automotive world that come and go, and they stick around for a few years. It's just fun to track them down and show them to people. You know, just to see all the different kind of engines and forms of propulsion that we've used over the years. So I thought you might get a kick out of this one. I certainly do. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks. See you next time.